Hello and welcome to the Invitto experience. My name is Bobbi Jo Gonnello, and I'm the founder of Invitto Performance. And today, we're going to give you a glimpse into the journey that I've experienced. As my story began, my power was taken away from me at the age of 6. Truth be told, I never let that stop me, though. I kept going like a force from nature itself, tackling every challenge the universe threw my way, welcoming every obstacle, throwing some punches along the way for sure, but always getting back up with a smile and an optimistic outlook. You see, I like to consider myself a pragmatic optimist. And what that means is I realistically try to stay as optimistic as possible. Now, that's not to say that I am not met with my days where my frustration can get the best of me, and sometimes that comes out in not the best way. But don't piss her off, because there's a fire inside of Bobbi. With lightness comes darkness. And you see, I have lived in darkness and walked through darkness with a smile and a puff in my chest, and I've never walked away from an opportunity, a struggle, or a challenge. So today, as we connect and talk about the timeline of my experience through this earthly journey, I want to pick up on our timeline in 2005. And then as we tell this story, we will make reflections through different timelines, bringing our story all together at the end. As we begin in this timeline of 2005, Bobbi has just returned from coaching at the National Olympic Compound for the German national team. An opportunity to coach at a college university opens up. Living close by, so it worked. I thought, thank you, universe, an opportunity to take my career to the next level in the sport I'm oh so passionate about. So for those of you who know me, know I dove right in, eagerly trying to take all of my past knowledge and experiences and create plans and curriculums and practices that could share that knowledge and experience with the athletes. But you know, life is a funny thing, and our world and the universe has a tricky way of showing us that life is about lessons. Right. Life is about lessons. You see, we've conditioned generations to be these little motorized generators that play 5, 7, 10 games in a weekend, collecting rings and trophies. But what we never talk about is their internal compass, the North Stars of these athletes. And that's what my story, hopefully, will unfold in a timeline for you of how if we can come together, not just athletes and coaches, not just the sports industry, the gaming industry, arts and culture and music and dance, the workforce, the world. If we can come together by learning from stories and experiences similar to mine, similar to other great humans walking this earth who haven't found the bravery or the strength or the freedom to step up, to speak up, and to tell their story, to shed some light into the underbelly that is softball, and how grooming takes place not just over one sport, not just over women's sports, but it is sport-wide, and it is worldwide, and it is non-gendered, and it is non-specific. But there is one thing that it is, and that is wrong, and it is inhumane. So, now that I have you sitting on the edge of your seats, let's start our story. 2005, I returned from Germany. I accept an offer to be the assistant softball coach. I accept the offer. The season's going well. Doing so well that I'm offered a position as also a dual position, assistant sports information director, along with assistant softball coach. This would allow me the ability to be on campus more. It would allow me the ability to help athletes in an academic manner, as well as get the stories out about our athletes as they were unfolding on the field to the local community. This was an opportunity to also help the recruiting end get strategic and bring in these athletes with an incredible skill set on a field that also crossed over to an incredible skill set in a classroom. Needless to say, I was beside myself with joy and happiness, and things were going really well until I started to slowly notice things. And the world has a funny way of making sure that we notice things, and then those one things become a few things. And those coincidences, as many call them, right, which most people fail to connect, sometimes those coincidences add up. And those coincidences can create these stories or these timelines and paint these pictures for people. And based on what they believe to be truthful, it can affect you in a way. And now the reason that I say that is because in this experience, I learned the most valuable lesson of my adult life in the athletic industry. And that was speaking up will get you blacklisted. Speaking up will get you blacklisted. And now I know that's not a nice term, right? And I know most people will say, oh, don't be so extreme. But I'm here to speak from experience and say it happens all too often. I was an assistant coach at a Division III university who was following the guidance of the leadership of the head coaches ahead of me, the assistant athletic director and the athletic director. It gets really easy as a human being to just look the other way. And I too found myself doing the same thing, falling into some of those same grooming behaviors and trying to catch myself as it was happening. You see, but none of this became a problem. We were crushing it. The team was doing well. We were winning. Back in those days, we had the good old AOL AIM. Started to notice things like away messages and talk at practice. And I started to get concerned that they were maybe upset with me. And I started to notice, and I started to feel as if I was being set up. And now everybody listening is going to be like, Bobbi, do you hear yourself? Yeah, I hear myself. I hear myself every day. And I live in Bobbi's world every day. And the core people who have known me from the moment I stepped on a soccer field, a softball field, or a basketball court, know me to always accept responsibility for my actions. But what they also know about Bobbi is that Bobbi was known for her predictive ability. That's what made me a great catcher, a great goalkeeper, a great hitter, predicting spin rates, figuring out if a ball is here 50 feet in front of me, I need to be able to predict where it's going to land so I could get to collision to impact with a barrel. These predictive skill sets that I developed as an athlete were allowing me a sense of awareness to see what was unfolding. But because I was so embedded in this world where this way of life was normal, it was very easy to see how I could be painted as wrong. So you heard me talk about predictability, right? Almost like forecasting. Yeah, forecasting. Okay, so that predictability helped me to see that things weren't lining up right and something weird was unfolding. And I kept talking to my friend in the sports information department who was my daily colleague that I sat in an office with. And he was so supportive. He was like, you're doing great, Bobbi. Keep it up. Until the day the phone rang. And I answered that phone, and I'll never forget because it was right toward the end of the season. And it was the human resources department saying, hi, Bobbi. I have a complaint. A student has filed an accusation. Yeah. Okay. Lot to take in right there. Remember our conversation about me saying things started to feel a little off? Well, now we know why. I was 25 years old following the lead of a head coach. So when HR called me, I gladly walked over to their office and I sat down, and I'm not going to lie. It was scary. and frightening and confusing, and I felt guilty. I felt ashamed, and I felt so hurt. But what I didn't feel that I was a victim. I didn't feel that they had control over me. And I didn't feel like I was going to walk away without them knowing the ugly underbelly that was living a legacy of grooming, where I came in and the stories were told about how coaches had been dating students who had become their wives, and assistant coaches were dating active students. And it wasn't just softball. The softball coach also happened to be the women's basketball coach. So now we're having grooming parties in his home with not one sport of female athletes, but two. Now, at some point, we've got to stop and say, time out. How did we get here? And this is where I'd like to reflect, okay? Because at the end of the day, it's not about how the story ended. It's about paying attention to the how we got here, the why we got here, and what we can do to make it better. So I told you I was going to make sure they knew what was going on, and I did exactly that. I wrote up my story as hard as it was, boxes of tissues next to me as I cried out each sentence of Bobbi's dream, because I'm a 25-year-old kid at this point. And I had just come back from Germany and I got a college coaching job. And if you know me, you know I'm 30 steps ahead. So to me, we were already at the NCAA Division III World Series by this time. But what I want to take from this story is the power of presence and the power of belief. Now let's reflect back and take our timeline to youth sports. And you're going to see now how this plays into the bigger picture, because we continually ask after these situations how we got here. We get here at 10U soccer. We get here at 12U softball. We get here at every sport and every team where athletes are groomed and conditioned to not speak up, to treat others differently, to not welcome new members on a team, to make parents feel like they have no control or no say. What happened to me happened at the age of 25, but that wasn't the first time. That was the first time I had power and a sense of presence to stand up and do the right thing. And I want to give credit to my mother for that, because I was raised by an HR professional. So we always make sure that even if we're wrong, we leave it better than we found it. And I try to do that everywhere I go. So that's why I want to now talk about youth sports. And I want to talk about how my journey in youth sports. I was a soccer player first, and I was recruited off a soccer team to a softball team. And then from that softball team, I was recruited into a different city to live with my family, a single mother of 3 girls. Recruited into a neighborhood in a completely new city so that I could play on a travel softball team. But I didn't let that challenge me. That's life, right? I want to share this story not to say that we can't do better, but to say that in doing better, we have to begin with being aware of what's unfolding in front of our eyes, being aware enough and brave enough to speak up, to ask questions and demand answers. Because it's in withholding information and keeping people from the ability to grow that we allow our power to be taken from us. Most of those kids who are othered on teams or put through the rigorous expectations that are never, ever achievable are athletes that are naturally gifted, who don't have parents to advocate for them with the knowledge, let's say, that these coaches' kids do. Or they don't have the money to invest in the lessons or the training to get the people around them to help keep them on a path that puts them aligned with the right people. Now, saying all of that, I bring up youth sports because this is where it starts. If we can start to wake up and pay attention, if we can create a healthier system where people acknowledge that behavior is wrong and speak up about it, we can start to reshape the world that we live in. with each age level of travel sports and each age level of rec sports, and with each ripple we make as we go through the sports industry and the dance and art industry and music, we then venture into gaming and over into the workplace. And if we can bridge all these gaps, understand the power of the human potential, our experiences, and hold space for one another and be brave enough to speak up when something is wrong, we can start to shape a better world where our children can feel safe, where they can feel heard, and where they can feel that it is okay to be who they want to be. Now, as we go through, my experience in youth sports was hard, but I didn't let that break me. I had great parents who, when I would come to them with problems or my complaints, as every athlete does, I don't understand, I'm working hard, just like my niece Aubriana or my niece Zoe that'll call when they're struggling to learn a new piece of the puzzle for their sport. I encourage and remind them, if it was easy, there'd be a lot more people doing it. And it's those of us who are strong enough to fight through the challenges that are put in front of us, that are strong enough and brave enough to show that we don't need favors, we don't need somebody to clear a path for us, that there are a few of us out here who are the real warriors and who are willing to stand up no matter how much you push us down. Now, I was an incredible catcher by the newspaper standards, I guess, and coaches and whatever the rankings were in travel ball growing up as a kid, and playing for a nationally ranked, undefeated, winningest team in the state of New Jersey high school. Anybody who followed me in high school would say, damn, Bobbi Jo Gonnello is an incredible first baseman, the best in the state of New Jersey, the most feared hitter in the state of New Jersey. But what nobody would get the opportunity to fully know was that I was a catcher. But I didn't let that stop me. See, we welcomed the challenge when we sat down and had a conversation if transferring out would be the best solution so that I could get the playing time that I felt I deserved with the kids that I grew up playing ball with. And my mother and my father looked at me and said, life is hard and it will give you challenges, but we don't walk away in the face of a challenge. Transferring isn't the answer. You deserve to be on that team, and you're going to work your way up until they see you. So that's what we did. I started on the freshman softball team. Great group of girls. They were my friends. We were in class together. We had a great time. And from the freshman softball team, as I would clear balls over the anybody who knows Clifton High School or Clifton Middle School, hitting balls over the logs of the fence into the parking lot at the freshman level, would slowly then make my way up to JV. And the day that I met Johnny Depp, got the opportunity to have my first pinch hit in a varsity game. And it was that moment, that one at bat. It took me almost an entire year to earn my way to the varsity spot on my high school team. But I got one at bat, and I made the most of it. And I didn't even get a hit, but I hit a ball 185, 190 feet to the fence. And that was the impact that it needed because it got the coach's eye, and I slowly worked my way up. And you're right, I was a catcher, but now I was a hell of a first baseman, and I was going to become the best first baseman for two reasons. Because that was the role I needed to play on my team, and because my teammates believed in me and I believed in me. My coaches believed in me, and we had a mission, and we were going to achieve that mission together. Now, the reason that I reflect on that story is not about the winning. It's not about what we achieved. It's about the way we were able to come together despite our differences. And even though I knew the pitcher on that team didn't want me behind the plate, I never let that shape my view of her. We laced up and took the field every day. And I didn't hold any grudges. Maybe inside it hurt a little bit, but I knew this is the world we lived in, and we have to learn to navigate within that world. So that's what Bobbi did. I continued to navigated my way all the way through. Just like my nieces, right? And I'm sure your children, or just like you yourself did. We navigate through the difficult work, toxic cultures that we find ourselves in, or the leaders who have an uncanny ability to make you feel unseen, unvalued, or unheard, we continue to navigate, and we use that moral compass and that North Star to remind us that nothing can change our intuitive feelings and instincts, right? And if you know you are strong enough and you know you can stay in and fight the fight, then fight it. Because every moment leads to something greater. Now, as we go back, right, we've shared the high school journey. Now we understand why it felt so impactful in 2005 when I had to make a really hard decision. And I chose to walk away. And, here's the funny thing about its place in my life. And when I say it, I mean this great sport of softball and baseball, right? Because really, that's what it is. It finds me. And I walked away in 2005 and 2006. And I did a brief stint back at Frozen Ropes, but I left that area and I moved north to Albany. And I worked there. But these experiences, they don't stop when you leave the ball field. They don't stop when you hang up the uniform. They follow you. This conditioning happens from the minute we're brought into this world. It's existed before we were here. And the only way we're going to come together to make it better for future generations is if we all speak up about our experiences, hold people accountable, but we have to believe that change is real. I wish I could tell you that these experiences ended when I walked away, but they didn't. It happened to me again, and I tried to quit and walk away because I had just went through this a few years ago, and I didn't want to go through it again. And quite frankly, at this point, you start to think it's you, right? No, wrong. I knew it wasn't me. The proof laid in the pudding. It wasn't me. And I stayed. I stayed brave, and I stayed through the uncomfortable, itty, gritty, nitty, bitty parts of people not talking to me and othering me and the dirty looks and the silent lunches. I stayed through it, and it turned out to be the greatest work experience of my life. Just like softball, just like the years in soccer, just like every experience we endure as human beings, this is Earth School. Our education doesn't begin and end with some systematic approach to what they feel the standards are that need to be met. Just like our worth as human beings doesn't exist or rest in the hands of someone else. We don't need self-help books. We don't need gurus and psychologists to tell us what we already know. We are part of a broken system that we have been enabling and replicating for centuries. And those of us who have tried to speak up, you push pills down our throat. You tell us we're crazy. There's something wrong with us and that we need help. But I ask you this. Look in the mirror. Give yourself a good hard look. And can you say that you spoke up every time you witnessed something that was not right? Because I know each and every one of us have looked away at some point. But we need to come together and understand that looking away is leading us the wrong way. We need to look in and create the ripple we can within ourselves and be that change. And it's not easy. And every time I walk into an environment where I know in my moral compass something is off, I speak up. And oftentimes we walk away feeling like we did something wrong because we're conditioned to feel that. We're told that it's not okay to defy leadership or to have a voice, right? Respect the hierarchy. So as we close out, I'm going to close out with this. Respect the hierarchy. Will you give yourself a long, hard look in the mirror? Will you ask your character and your moral compass and your North Star if you're headed in the right direction? Are you willing to be brave and strong and lead the charge and change with us? Now we need to look back, to reflect, to see the growth that has led us forward. But in doing that look back, let's look back on the positive. Let's look back on the things that made us stronger, that taught us the lessons, that created successes, that grew our spirits as human beings, and that made us realize the worth and power that has always lived within us. The truth is that most of us who are going through this were raised on these fields and have given our life to future generations. Deserve the beauty that is women's softball. But I believe that by acknowledging it, educating ourselves about the why and how it happens, and learning from it so we can grow from it, will be the greatest victory and legacy that we leave behind this earth. It doesn't begin and end with sports, and it doesn't begin and end with women. It's happening all over. This is a human problem. This is a human condition. And it is not gendered, and it is not sexist, and it does not discriminate. Speak up. Let's come together. I know it's in baseball, and I know it's in football, and I know it's out there, and we believe in you, and we are brave together. And we are going to be the change that tells the greatest success story to ever live within our lifetime. So, to all those who've been on this journey and experienced similar things, we were never victims. We are the victors of one of the hardest life journeys that have ever had to be lived on this human experience on this earth school. So stay strong, stay grounded, and stay speaking up, because we are here and we will make an impact for a greater industry in the sports world, for youth, and for all future generations to come. Thank you. And this is Bobbi signing off with the Invitto Experience.